Freud explains why you repeat mistakes even when you know they will hurt you. Have you wondered why after promising yourself you wouldn't do it again, you end up returning to the same type of relationship, the same behavior, the same mistake that has hurt you before? You know how it ends. You feel the signals in your body. You notice the warning in your mind. And yet, something in you insists. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's not moral weakness. It's not bad luck. Freud would say this is the clearest proof that you are not governed only by consciousness. There is something in you that wants to repeat. And as long as you don't understand this, life will keep placing you in the same scenario, with different characters, until the lesson is seen. Pay close attention now. Most people believe they learn from pain. Freud showed that this is not always true. Often, pain does not push you away, it pulls you in. Because what repeats is not the suffering itself, but the unconscious meaning it carries. You don't return to what hurts you because you like to suffer. You return because, on some deep level, it feels familiar. And the unconscious prefers the familiar to the healthy. It chooses what is known, even if it hurts, over what is unknown and threatens to disrupt everything you built to survive. In psychoanalysis, this is called repetition compulsion, and it is one of the most disturbing concepts Freud ever formulated. He observed that patients repeated patterns that clearly went against their own well-being, abusive relationships, recurring failures, self-sabotage, avoidable losses, not by chance, but out of unconscious loyalty to something from the past, something that was not worked through, something that was not understood, something that remained trapped inside and keeps asking to be relived, in the silent hope that this time the ending will be different. And here is the point almost no one tells you. You don't repeat because you want to. You repeat because you don't remember, at least not consciously. The body remembers. Emotion remembers. The unconscious remembers. And it acts when you believe you are simply following your heart, being spontaneous, or listening to your intuition. But not all intuition comes from wisdom. Many come from wounds. Freud said that what is not brought into consciousness returns as destiny. Think about that calmly. How many times have you said, "This always seems to happen to me"? How many times have you felt that life was punishing you, when in fact it was only mirroring something you still hadn't seen in yourself? The unconscious does not speak in words. It speaks through repetitions. It doesn't ask for attention, it creates situations. And as long as you keep reacting automatically, it will keep deciding for you. You can change cities. You can change partners. You can change jobs. You can change friends. But if you don't change the internal position you occupy toward desire, guilt, fear, and neediness, the script repeats. Only the setting changes. Freud was radical in stating this, because he knew how uncomfortable it is to accept. It's easier to blame others, the world, or bad luck. Harder is to look inward and realize that there is a part of you still trapped in an old logic, trying to resolve today something that began long ago. And here a question arises that can change everything. What are you trying to fix when you repeat the same mistake? Maybe you're trying to be seen. Maybe you're trying to be loved. Maybe you're trying to prove something. Maybe you're trying to redo a scene in which, in the past, you felt powerless, rejected, or invisible. The unconscious does not seek happiness. It seeks coherence. It tries to keep alive the story that shaped who you believe you are. That's why many people say, "I know it's not good for me, but I can't leave." It's not a lack of strength. It's unconscious loyalty to an old image of yourself, to an identity built through pain. Freud observed that for some people, abandoning suffering would feel like losing a part of their identity. Without realizing it, they learn to exist through lack, effort, and constant tension. Calm feels strange. Healthy affection feels boring. Stability feels empty. And so they return to chaos not because they like it, but because they know how to survive in it. Now listen carefully. Repeating is not failing. Repeating is trying. It is the unconscious attempt to master something that once mastered you. But while this attempt happens in the dark, it enslaves you. When it happens in consciousness, it frees you. Freud did not believe healing comes from avoidance. He believed healing comes from understanding, from looking, naming, and enduring the truth without fleeing. There is a huge difference between choice and repetition. Choice is born from consciousness. Repetition is born from defense. When you choose, you feel clarity, even if there is fear. When you repeat, you feel urgency, confusion, impulse. Everything feels too intense, too fast, too inevitable. That is the sign. Whenever something feels irresistible, it is probably not free. It is an unconscious force asking for the stage. Freud said that the ego, the part of you that tries to keep everything under control, makes silent deals with the unconscious. It rationalizes. It justifies. It creates beautiful stories to explain decisions that were actually made before you even thought about them. This time it will be different. Now I've changed. I can handle it better, but if the internal pattern has not been touched, repetition always does. And here is the turning point that changes everything. You don't need to fight repetition. You need to listen to it. Every repetition carries a message. Every relapse points to something that has not yet been symbolized, something that hasn't found words, hasn't been cried, processed, understood. Until that happens, the unconscious insists, not out of cruelty, but out of loyalty to its own logic. Many people confuse self-control with repression. Freud was clear in showing that repression doesn't solve anything. It only pushes the conflict deeper, where it becomes stronger. The more you try not to feel, not to think, not to want, the more desire returns in disguise, sometimes as anxiety, sometimes as compulsion, sometimes as a bad choice. What you don't listen to inside, you live out outside. Have you noticed how certain situations completely throw you off balance, as if something takes over? Freud would call this the return of the repressed. What was pushed out of consciousness comes back not as memory, but as action. You don't remember. You act, and only afterward do you try to understand. That's why so many people say, "I don't know why I did that." The unconscious knows, but it doesn't speak your language. And now comes the most important part. Repetition only loses its power when you can bear to look at what it protects. Because every pattern, even the most destructive one, has a psychic function. It protects you from something that, at some point in your history, was unbearable, perhaps loneliness, abandonment, or the feeling of not being enough. As long as this pain is not recognized, the pattern remains necessary. Freud believed that true freedom is not doing whatever you want, but knowing why you want it. When you understand this, something changes. You begin to notice the impulse before obeying it. You create a space between desire and action. And it is in that space that the possibility of choice is born, not a perfect choice, but a more conscious one, less automatic, less repetitive. Maybe as you hear this, specific situations come to mind, people who return, decisions that repeat, promises that are broken. If that's happening, don't blame yourself. Guilt only strengthens the cycle. What breaks repetition is conscious responsibility, saying, "This speaks about me. This has meaning. And I am willing to listen, even if it hurts." Freud never promised comfort. He promised truth, and truth, at first, disorganizes. It shakes the ground, it breaks illusions. But only after that break can something new be organized. As long as true, if you always been life, when you begin to question your own motivations, something starts to move. You are not weak for repeating. You are human. But you become responsible when you decide to stop, romanticizing the pattern when you stop calling it destiny, bad luck, or just the way I am, when you understand that repetition is a request to be heard, and that the unconscious only calms down when it feels recognized. Now take a deep breath. If you've made it this far, it's because this message touched something real inside you, perhaps uncomfortable, perhaps hard to accept, but real. And that is already a huge step. Most people never get here. Most run away. You stayed. You listened. That already shows that something in you is ready to leave the cycle. Freud would say that the first act of freedom is to make conscious what once governed you, in the dark, not to get rid of yourself, but to finally meet yourself. When you understand why you repeat, you don't become perfect. You become lucid. And lucidity changes everything. If this video made sense to you, if at any moment you recognized yourself in these words, leave a comment saying, "I choose to understand my patterns." This is not just a comment, it's an inner position. Like the video, subscribe to channel, unsteady, because stand mine event. It's a process. And the more you understand what moves you, the less life needs to push you to teach you. See you in the next video.